name is Violet Washburn, and I am the coordinator of campus engagement and international student services, and I work here at the University of Maine, Nebraska. I'd like to welcome you all, and thank you for coming out this evening to participate in UMPI's Distinguished Lecturer Series. Bringing distinguished lecturers to campus, all of whom have made significant contributions in their field, is part of the university's mission. And we believe it's incredibly important to provide these opportunities, like our speaker tonight. Hilary Corna is the former Senior Executive Officer for Toyota in Asia, where she managed a team of people across 14 different countries as a charge leader for all of the dealerships in Asia. Since returning to America, Hilary has written and published her book, One White Face, a memoir of her time abroad. Since its release, One White Face has been featured in such media as the New York Times, NBC, and Forbes Women. Her book was reviewed as the new Eat, Pray, Love, and is now being adapted into a screenplay. Her book will be for sale at the end of the event, and a portion of all book sales go to the Coca-Cola Scholarship Foundation for underprivileged high school students, so please make sure you get a copy. Hilary has been featured as a speaker on TED Talks, and her book tour is sponsored in part by Toyota Motor USA. Hilary studied at Kensho Gaidai University in Okasa, Japan, and graduated from Elon University in North Carolina. She's been featured in Pearson's Business Communication College Textbook, speaks Japanese, and resides in Austin, Texas. So without further wait, please help me welcome Hilary Corna.
She did great, didn't she? That was a long-winded intro. Okay, so to warm y'all up, we're going to play a game of truth or dare. Except the more fun version, dare or dare. I dare y'all to stand up. Yep. And I dare one of you to come to the front with me. Together we're going to dare the audience, okay? I'll go first, you follow suit. That's your reputation, kind of depends on it. Okay, so let's see how y'all are feeling. I dare you to hug the person next to you. It is not on. Thank you. Just needed a dramatic entrance. Okay, your turn. Okay.
I dare all of you to turn around and give the person behind you a high five.
All right. I dare you to introduce yourself to someone you don't know.
Put her here.
Your last one, think of it. Go with your gut.
I dare all of you to say the Faith Morrow is the best student.
Faith Moore. The best student ever. Woo! That was great. Wait, I dare you to take a big breath in and out. So, the best student ever. How long did it take her to come to the front?
Not long.
2 seconds? 30 seconds? What if I said that in this bag was $100 bill?
Okay.
She saw the opportunity, she decided she wanted it, she deleted everything out of her way, like fear she might be really silly in front of her peers, and she did it. Faith, I do not have a $100 bill for you. But, even better, I have a copy of my book. And I implore you to continue to dare yourself.
Thank you.
Give it up for me. I just had to make sure everyone was awake in the room, you know, blood going again. So today I'm going to be using this word dare a lot. And the reason is, I love this word. By definition, it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful, like most things in our life is for success. We go to high school, to go to college, to get a job, to provide for our family. But to dare yourself is all about being courageous and bold and just trying without expected outcome. My mission as a program, yes sir. Oh, are you pointing your finger at me? No. Oh, you're holding. I thought you were saying like, hold on. So my mission through the Dare Yourself movement is to inspire students to think differently about the world and become their own form of a global leader, whether either here domestically or abroad. Today I'm going to share a bit of the story of how I was dared to succeed as Senior Executive Officer for Toyota in Asia, and the first time they had ever hired a woman in the field of operations in 14 Asian countries. But my first dare didn't start there. It actually started on my 250th day of life. When I woke up, and the only thing that had changed was that I no longer had a father. My dad passed away in a car accident on the way home from Valentine's Day and left my mom with 5 children to raise on her own, and she did not go to college. And the thing about growing up and not knowing the difference between shopping for food at a food bank or the grocery store, or lying on your first job application saying you were 14 instead of 12 so that you could help your mom with bills, is that when one learns to dare themselves because they have to, you learn to dare yourself, but because you want to. So the dares continued. But I didn't really dare myself because I wanted to until I got to college. So I dared myself to start studying Japanese. All because of this little lady up here. This is my grandma. My grandma lived in Japan for 7 years. My grandpa was a sergeant in the army. So whenever I'd go to her house, her whole walls were covered by like ornate artifacts from Japan. You had to take your shoes off at the front door. And I was always this curious kid and asked my grandma questions like, what is this vast land you call Asia? So when I got to college and I was told the dean of the business school I wanted to study Japanese. He was really upset because at that time I was fluent in Spanish. And he said, why would you start a language from scratch and give up this language? So, because I want to, right? So I went against his advice. I took my first semester of Japanese and totally geeked out. Got over 100% my first semester. I aced all my subsequent classes. And I realized something very simple, which is people tend to do well in the things they enjoy doing. Not so much rocket science, right? So the dares continue. I got to a point with the language that I wasn't going to get any better unless I went to Japan. But to study abroad in Japan was going to cost $12,000, which I did not have in college. And I'm sure many of you in the room didn't have either, or don't have. I was able to do about 6 months of research and find out that because Japan was so hard to study abroad in, there's lots of scholarships to get Americans there. And thus, I was able to fund the whole study abroad experience through scholarships. When I got abroad, because it took so much to get abroad, I was very adamant about learning about Japanese business culture. That's, for me, what I was really fascinated about. So I had some business mentors like this guy, Okabashi-san, who's a lot nicer in person. He's just a little drunk in this photo. Sorry, Okabashi-san. And Okabashi-san owned a manufacturing company. And at the end of my study abroad experience, he offered me an internship. Unfortunately, I had one dilemma. What do you think that dilemma might have been?
Boyfriend.
Who said You're giving it all away.
Just a guess.
Just, have you read the book?
No?
Oh, great. Great guess. She is right. A+ to you. I had a boyfriend about 3 years. First love of my life. And essentially when I told him about this opportunity, he gave me an ultimatum and said, if you take this job, I'm not waiting for you anymore. So, how many of you think I took the job and left the boyfriend? Raise your hand. Should have. How many of you think I took the boyfriend and left the job? Raise your hand. This is when I realized that we don't always succeed at our dares. Sometimes we fail. I gave up the internship. I thought he was the love of my life. P.S. You can love many people in your life, especially after the age of 20. And I just was really scared to lose him. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with him. But what's beautiful is that the universe always comes back to dare us again. So then I was dared with this idea. I didn't even know you could work abroad, much less intern abroad. I was dared with this idea, what if I could work abroad now after college, instead of waiting to be uprooted from friends, families, boyfriends later in life? And what if I could get abroad now, instead of waiting for a company to tell me when and if I could? So I did about 9 months of research. I started interviewing with companies, started researching industries and jobs, and asking the same question of who would hire a young American woman fresh out of college. Fortunately, I had some leads, and everyone said the same thing, which is you look great on paper, your resume sounds great, but it doesn't make any sense for us to hire you unless you're here. So I thought, well, that's easy. I've already been on a 14-hour flight to Japan, so I'll go. That was my green light. So I dumped the boyfriend. Okay. Sometimes people do pause there. It's not and guys, you can dump girlfriends too. Like, it's all about equality here. But I broke up with him. I knew I couldn't love him until I had pursued that. And I gave myself a budget of $2,000 cash, a time frame of 2 months, and said, if I don't find a job before either one of those run out, I'll come home. But I had to try. So in honor of my father upon graduation, I bought a one-way ticket to Singapore, a country in the middle of the South Pacific, right somewhere there, that I had never been to for a job that I didn't yet have. Crazy, huh? So how many of you have ever made your parents slightly unhappy before? When my mom found out I bought my plane ticket, she looked a little bit something like this. I love all of this in this area right here that are not college students. I think this is the most funny. It's true though, right? You would do the same thing. So the dares continued as I got into Singapore. About 6 weeks went by and I did have some leads, but nothing was really materializing and I was running out of money. And I was on the phone with some family back home and they said to me, why don't you just accept reality and come home? So instead, I hung up the phone and I went for a swim in this pool. And it was the first time I had taken a break in 6 weeks from job searching. I mean, everyone was like, why aren't you posting on Facebook? Where are all the pictures? And I'm like, I'm looking for a job. Like, this is not a vacation. So this is the first swim I had taken in this pool where I was staying in 6 weeks. And as I'm swimming, and I'm, I don't know if you know much about Singapore, but Singapore's right on the equator, so it's just the total tropics. It's amazing. And it's hot and lush greenery, and I'm just reminding myself, like, Hilary, you got all the way here. You just have to persevere a little bit more. And right as I come out of the water, I am graced by the most adorable 2-year-old Japanese boy swimming in floaties in front of me. So without hesitation, I said, "Konnichiwa." And he looked back at me like, who's this crazy white girl talking Japanese to me? And I spoke with his mother in Japanese for about 30 minutes. And then his dad came up from behind. And his dad ended up being the most successful Toyota dealership owner in Tokyo for 10 consecutive years. He had already retired by the age of 40 and was hired as a consultant for their office in Singapore. And lo and behold, he had one position available in his department. And that is when my pipe dream came true. And that's when I realized that you could just talk about ideas, you can't just think about them or write them down or make really fancy, clever Instagram posts. You have to chew on them, you have to taste them, you have to act on them, because at the end of the day, everyone else is just going to tell you to accept reality. So, there I was, in an office of 250 people, and guess who was the only American? That's a model. And more specifically, in that office, I blend right in, right? More specifically, I was the youngest. I was the only native English speaker. I was the only Caucasian in the whole office, and I was the only female in the field of operations they'd ever hired. So basically, I had everything against me. Our office, as I mentioned, had 250 people. Well, we had people from over 20 countries that spoke over 30 languages in the office. Toyota hired me because they knew that they were doing a business in a country, the country of Singapore, that is English-speaking, very westernized, and first world. They knew that they couldn't do business the Japanese way. So I served as a bridge between all of these countries that could help bring people together. I think one, from my own personal standpoint, women do a very good job at this, and then also Americans. Despite all the bad rap that we get abroad, people really, really love us. People want to learn from us, people want to learn the language, and they want to listen. And so I served in that position for the betterment of the company. For 3 years, I traveled around all these 14 countries, managing a team of 10 people, from the Philippines to Thailand to India. If I wasn't traveling to the dealerships, I was in our headquarter office, which is in Singapore, doing what's called Kaizen. How many of you guys have ever heard of just-in-time, Jidoka, any of these words, Six Sigma, Kaizen? Anyone taking a 300 or 400 level ops class? Yes? Any a business major? Those little students are right here. No business majors in the room.
Okay.
One business major.
It's in the fall. It's a fall class.
Ops is a fall class? Cool. So you are a step ahead. If you do take an ops class, this is the beginning stages. So Kaizen, repeat after me. Kai. Zen. Kaizen. Well done. Now you can speak a little Japanese. So Zen, y'all know, you've heard of like Zen Buddhism, yeah? So Zen, the direct translation means for the better. Kai means change. So together they mean change for the better. In the US, we kind of make our own interpretation of this, which translates to continuous improvement. So this is a concept that when you join Toyota, they're one of two pillars of what's called the Toyota way. One is continuous improvement, and two is mutual respect. So this is in the depths of the company, everything that people talk about, you hear this, you see it on posters, it is what the whole company represents. Continuous improvement and mutual respect. So when you think of operations, this sounds really, really boring, but I'll give you the most easiest way to understand what ops means. When you go into a dealership, what do? Car dealership. What's the first thing you do when you walk into the dealership? Say it again?
You look around.
Okay, so you walk in and you wait, yeah? You wait. Okay. What's the last thing you do in the dealership?
Drive away in the car.
Or without a car. So our job, doing Kaizen, was we would understand every process the customer goes through, from the time they walk in not knowing where to start, to the time they walk out with or without a car. And we would identify processes that cause the customer trouble, anytime from the beginning to the end of that process. And we would directly relate that process to the profitability of the dealership, and then we would improve it. And if it worked, then we would standardize. So what does that mean? Who has been to a car dealership recently? How long did you wait?
To buy the car or
I'm sorry, good question. To get delivered the vehicle.
that day?
Okay, you're probably in a Toyota, weren't you?
No.
Okay, anyone else? How long did you wait to get delivered your vehicle? I saw a couple over here. Yeah.
Wasn't long, less than a day, a couple of hours.
Okay, this is not working in my favor, guys. Okay, so have you, yeah, in the back.
5 minutes.
It was a Toyota, right?
GMC.
Ah, yeah. Okay. P.S. I don't work for Toyota anymore. I'm just totally brainwashed. But, so, okay, I'll back that up. Maybe this example is not working. In Toyota, in the Philippines, we found that the average lead time to get delivered a vehicle was 12 days. We were able to equate all of the lost sales. So, back up. What would you do if you had to wait 12 days for a car? Go somewhere else. Yeah. So we were able to quantify how many people went somewhere else, therefore how much value that was worth to the dealership. That was a lot of money, you can just add it up. And it was over $1.2 million. Would you be happy or sad if you owned a business that was losing $1.2 million in a year? Yeah, pretty angry. I'm not gonna cuss because I'm on video camera. So, when we brought that up to the dealership owner, he was like, immediately fix it, and that's what we did. We went and changed the process. We found out they had big issues in the demand and supply forecasting of the stock. We fixed it, and we reduced that to a lead time of half a day within 3 months. So that, da-da-da, is Kaizen. Essentially, we're like internal consultants for the company. So if I wasn't traveling, I was in this office, which is a little dark in this picture, but I'm going to point out a couple of fun things. So one of the things is, if you notice my nameplate, this might be hard, but my nameplate is pink. Why would my nameplate be pink? Okay, you're not going to offend me. Yes, because I'm a female.
It's the best color in the world.
What'd you say?
It's the best color in the world.
Best color in the world, I love that. I thought you said the best girl in the world. I was like, thanks, man, I have a fan in the back. Best color in the world. Yeah, I'm liking the off pink that's in style right now. Yeah. Okay, so in Kaizen, we call this miruka. Miruka means a visualization tool. So why would Toyota want to identify that I was a girl? You have an office of people from over 20 countries speaking over 30 languages roughly. Why would they want to identify as a girl?
Discrimination.
Can you put that in a complete sentence? It's good. You're on to something. No. You got it. You got just put it in a complete sentence. What would it be if you did know? This is what I do for a living. One sentence. What about discrimination?
They don't discriminate against hiring women.
That they don't discriminate against hiring women. That's a great question, or a great insinuation. So this is what we call a Miruka tool to prevent from insulting people. So in a company where you have people from over 20 countries speaking over so many languages, it's very difficult to distinguish gender. How many of you guys have ever met someone who's Korean, who's named Kim? Sometimes it's a girl, sometimes it's a guy. It's a perfect example, a very easy example, that it's hard to distinguish gender across all these languages. So you'll see examples of this if you ever go to Japan or Asian cultures, but specifically Japan. There's examples of Miruka everywhere, which is essentially how can you visualize to prevent from human error. The other thing that you'll notice in this picture, although it's hard to see, is this desk right back here. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, is something coming from the sky? This desk just over here is the president of Toyota Motor Asia Pacific. What you can't tell in the photo is that his desk is the same size as everyone else's. What does that promote? Quality. How many of you guys have ever had a boss that sat themselves in an office with a door in the office was bigger than everyone else's? Sorry for all the bosses in the room that have big offices. Violet. Yeah, but you keep your door open, so that's good. Sometimes. So at any given point in time, I was able to access the president of Toyota Motor Asia Pacific, one of the most powerful men in all of Toyota, by just a few feet. And what did that do? It built camaraderie and it made me feel like he was in it too. Whereas a lot of time in the US, when we have relationships with bosses, we kind of just feel like the boss is on a high horse. So it felt like we're all in this together. So if there's 3 things I learned from Toyota about what made our team successful, it was 1, mutual respect. That we all had the ability to share mutual respect even when we disagreed, especially across all these different cultures. 2, our ability to find common ground. I could go through endless stories with you about Thai teams disagreeing with the Indian team, disagreeing with the Malaysian team. All of these cultures, although sometimes we lump them together as Asia, work vastly different than other cultures. So our ability to find common ground is one of the most difficult things, but our success depended on it. And then lastly, our ability to give all voices a chance to be heard. There's a phrase in Japanese called nemowashi, and the direct translation means, before you dig up a tree, you have to dig around the roots. So in the decision-making process, we would go to each individual party involved, each stakeholder involved in the decision, get their input, allow all of the voices to be heard before any decision was made and anything was signed off of. In the States, here, we bring everyone together in a room, and then we're like, why is this meeting taking so long? But it takes so long because there's so many people and so many important perspectives, instead of taking it one by one so that the decision at the end is way easier. So that is nemowashi. So this is a picture of one of the biggest meetings that happened in Toyota in India. After the financial crisis hit, I got reassigned to India, where we helped introduce sales operations for the first small car that was ever going to be introduced for India. So how many of y'all have been to Europe and you've seen really itty-bitty cars that have like 2 doors? Okay, so we don't have those in the States because we don't need them. We have enough space, our garages are big enough, our streets are big enough, we have enough land. In Europe and Asia, they're the #1 car that's sold. At that time in India, we had not sold them. So we were teaching our salespeople how to sell this car to a different kind of customer. In this picture, we were reporting the status of a project, which actually wasn't going well at the time. But there's one person in this picture who's the biggest boss of them all. Who do you think it might be? Just describe it. Anyone want to take a stab?
Was it you?
Say it again.
Was it you?
Ha ha ha, I'm not that mean. I'm not gonna play a trick on you. Who wants to take a guess? It's just process of elimination.
The one they're all looking at?
This one?
Yeah.
Nope.
With the guy in the white shirt with the tie? Nope. Yep.
Violet, are you supposed to participate? Is she supposed to participate? Okay, we just said all voices a chance to be heard, blah, blah, blah. Yes, did anyone else guess him? Who else guessed him? Why did you guess him?
The tie.
The tie. Why else did you guess him?
He looks like he's listening.
He's listening. Why else?
Casual stance. He's
Casual?
paying attention to what everyone else is saying.
Yeah, awesome. So So this became my job all the time. If there's anything you don't know about Japanese culture, or you might know, it's that it's very difficult to judge how they're feeling at any given point in time. In the US, we're super expressive. I think I've gone like this already 100 times in this presentation. In Japanese culture, it's really hard to read people. Although this gentleman is actually Indian, but by that point, he's worked with the company for so long. That guy's name is Jojo-san. Jojo-san is the most successful Toyota dealership owner in India. So this dude is a multi-millionaire. The reason he's the biggest boss of them all is that back in samurai days in Japan, the person who had the most authority would sit furthest away from the door without his back to the door, because that's how he would avoid assassination. To this day, Toyota will seat their biggest meetings in this way, to the point that they actually create a seating chart in advance, and your seat is based on your hierarchy in the company. So now the question becomes, where do you think I sat? The cool part about this whole story is that I was not invited to this meeting, and I was not invited because I was the only female on this project, and they thought that it would conflict with the people in the room. It took me 2 months of asking my boss, and then they asked his boss, who asked his boss, and it was third in command that finally approved my attendance in this meeting, despite me running the whole project in India. So the role of women in Asia, in Japanese culture, and in India is still very much a very real challenge. When I got assigned to the India project, they assigned me a female, and she had worked for the dealership under Jojo-san for 7 years, and he didn't even know her name. By the time we left a year and a half later, he went to her and said, "From now on, Basha, whatever you need from me, you come straight to me." That was the kind of change we were trying to create in the dealership. One where by doing projects around Kaizen, it was empowering the employees to share their ideas and to make change with the leadership. So, when you talk about leadership, how many of you guys have heard of any of these words? Just raise your hand. Because there's a lot of types of leadership. All right, so participative, I'll run them quickly. Participative is essentially you garner input. Authoritarian, you direct. Laissez-faire means we'll see how it goes in an easy way. Transformational means you come up with a change together as a team and then you implement. Servant means you're in service of others, typically religious leaders. When you talk about global leadership, for whatever reason, there's this incredibly long definition, which you could choose to read. I prefer to interpret it through storytelling or examples, such as this one. This is a quote from the SVP of Google Worldwide, and I will let you read it. Ironically, he is Indian and he is not American. In your own words, what do you draw from this quote? Anyone?
We need to change our way.
Say it again.
We need to change our way of thinking.
Love it. Yes, ma'am. Change our way of thinking.
Cautious about how other people do things and you do something different, you need somebody where they're at on their level.
Conscious of other ways of doing things and meet people where they're at their level. Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. Anyone else have a different interpretation?
Putting our ego aside.
Putting ego aside. Beautiful. So we live in this kind of crazy world already. You know, it's easy to think, hey, we're in Maine, we might not have access to global leadership, or this girl's crazy story about living abroad. But the fact is, you all use iPhones that are not made here. If you call tech support for Verizon or many other companies, you are talking to a complete stranger that you have to learn to get along with within 30 seconds. You're already more global than you think. And who doesn't use Google? I mean, Yahoo, for real. No one uses Yahoo anymore. So Google's not going anywhere. Our phones aren't going anywhere, that's for sure. We are already way more global than we think we are. But maybe we could use a little push to understand people, think differently, and meet people where they're at. My favorite story from living and working abroad is one of my first business trips, which is we sat down for lunch in Taiwan, and this fish was served. And we sat down for lunch, and my colleague leaned over and he said, "Hilary-san, you must eat the eyeball. It's good for the women's skin." So I smiled, I picked up my spoon, scooped the eyeball from its socket, held back my head, dropped it down my throat, and swallowed it whole. The entire table in a very quiet little tiny restaurant stood up out of their chairs and applauded because they couldn't believe that this young American girl had just eaten this fish eyeball. It gets better. What they didn't know was that 2 years prior, I had been dared with the same dare while studying abroad in Japan. And it was that time that I hesitated. It was a group of my girlfriends sitting around a table. It was like a rumor that we heard. "Oh my God, did you know it's good for your skin if you eat fish eyeballs?" We were all like, "No," and they're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "No." You know, sometimes girls have conversations like that. And it went on for 45 minutes. And we chewed it. P.S. Don't chew fish eyeballs. They pop. You're welcome. You can thank me later. But little did I know that this seemingly insignificant dare, like eating a fish eyeball, would prepare me for 2 years later when I had to earn the trust of my Taiwanese counterpart. Because in Asia, there are really weird ways to earn trust of your colleagues. It's just weird like that. But he was so impressed, and from then on, I swear to you, they were our biggest, strongest partner. Strange. So imagine if you ate more fish eyeballs or other strange food. If you swam in more pools and talked to kids, maybe not the guys, that's a little bit weird. Girls, you're cool. But if you talked to more cute kids just because they were cute, or if you came to the front of the room instead of waiting to see like what this silly girl is going to make us do. Imagine if you signed up for more things under Violet's wonderful program, did more research projects, but took on more dares for yourself without expected result. But because the opportunity presents itself. Because once you develop a mindset like that, a lot of crazy things happen. One, it becomes addictive, in a good way. Two, you get better at handling rejection and when things go poorly. And three, you start to not really care what other people think. Because you're doing it for you and no one else. And I don't know about you, but that's the kind of life I love to live. The life where I'm constantly daring myself because I want to, not because my parents are telling me to should, or because a professor is telling me I should or shouldn't, or society, or social media, but because I want to. So the question becomes, how are you daring yourself? When you sat down, you may have sat on it. There was a little card, index card. Go ahead and pull that out. If you don't have one, Violet will hand you one. And she has some pencils. Now what we're going to do, don't worry, you don't have to turn this in. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. You can write as little or as much as you want, but this is for you to keep and you alone to see.
How did I pick the one that was
Do you need one over here? Okay. Can you just pass that back? Backwards. All the way back. Oh, that's great. So for this next piece, anyone who has their legs crossed, go ahead and uncross your legs, sit up straight, take a big breath in, and out. Shimmy your shoulders down, relax. Feet flat on the floor. There you go. And close your eyes. Oh, everyone's like, oh shit. Relax. Now I'm going to ask you a question. And when you open your eyes, I want you to write down whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind as the answer to that question. That's the trick, the first thing. So big breath in again, and out. What is the one thing that either you or someone else has held you back from doing, but you've always wanted to do? Or is one thing you've always wanted to do, but either you yourself or someone else has held you back from it? Now open up your eyes and just write down that one thing. Research shows that you're 85% more likely to do something if you write it down. So one thing you've always wanted to do, but either you yourself or someone else has held you back from it. The fun thing about dares is if you live a very full life, you never really stop daring yourself. Your dares just slightly change. So I'm going to walk you through one of the things that we did with our people at Toyota. This process of decide, delete, do. So we'll start with decide. How do you set parameters and work backwards? So here's my next challenge to you. If you could better define that dare by one more parameter, what would it be? As an example, if my dare for myself is do well this semester, is that my hair? My jacket. It's on my jacket.
It's rubbing up against your shirt.
It's my shirt. Gosh, all these frou-frou shirts. All right. So if you could define your dare in one more detail. So for example, if my dare is I want to do well this semester, what does well mean? Does that mean get a good GPA? And what does good GPA mean by like get a 4.0 GPA or a 2.0 GPA? Kind of a big difference. Maybe if you want to study a language, do you want to study a language for one semester, or do you want to study for 2 years? Do you want to study for 1 hour a week or 1 hour a year? If you could define your dare by one more detail, who, what, where, when, why, go ahead and put that extra detail on your card. Apparently I have a fan club over here, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them. A lot of my way of teaching is through storytelling because that's how I learned from Toyota, and I think people learn in general better this way. One of my favorite stories comes from Buddhism, having studied it many times, but the story goes that two monks are walking through the forest on their journey towards enlightenment, because that's what monks do. But one monk is a junior monk and one monk is a senior monk. And as they're on their journey towards enlightenment, they come across a lady at the side of a riverbank. And it's very evident to both of them that she can't get across on her own. So the senior monk leaves the junior monk, goes over to the woman by himself, picks her up on his shoulders, carries her across the river to the other side where he lets her down. The senior monk and the junior monk join up back forces on their journey towards enlightenment through the forest, when the senior monk realizes that something's wrong and asks the junior monk. And he replies, "Sir, I do not understand. You picked up that woman, you carried her across the river. That is entirely against our being." The senior monk turned back to the junior monk and said, "I left her on the other side of the riverbank. Why are you still carrying her?" That sometimes takes a few seconds. But sometimes we have to let go of what we think is the right thing and do what is right, even if it doesn't make sense in a moment. And even if it's against our complete opinion by our parents, or even it's against what society opinion of us should be doing. Let go of what we're supposed to be doing, or not supposed to be doing, and just be in a moment, because in that moment's what's right. Talking to a little Japanese kid in a pool is not really the right thing to do. And sometimes we have to push those barriers to be what's right in that moment. As my boss at Toyota would always say, give yourself permission instead of waiting for someone else to. How many of you have a friend who just always waits for someone else to tell them what to do? Right? We all have friends like that. And you just look at them and you're like, when are you just going to grasp your life by the reins and take control yourself? It doesn't come naturally, and as we get older, it only gets harder. As we get older, daring yourself becomes way more scarier. Second, delete. Remove things out of your way. How many of you guys have ever said the hardest thing in life is to learn how to say no? Yes. Very difficult. Very difficult, and again, needs practice. Any psychology majors in the room? No. Okay, this is going to be good. It won't ruin my story. Have you guys ever heard of the Marshmallow Test? Great. That's why I'm here, Violet. Look at you. So the Marshmallow Test was a study done in the 40s by psychologists. And what they did was they took 2-year-old kids, put them in an all-white room, sat them down at a table, and said, here, you can have a marshmallow. And right before they ate the one marshmallow, they stopped them and said, but if you wait, you can have not one, but 2 marshmallows. How many of you think the majority of kids ate the first marshmallow? Right. Because these kids are 2 and they haven't really developed reasoning yet. That's not the interesting part of the story. What's interesting is that these psychologists followed the children into their adult lives. And they found that the ones who waited for the second marshmallow instead of eating the first, which was the minority, were significantly more successful in their adult lives compared to the ones that only had one marshmallow. When you hear this story, what key words come to mind?
Patience.
Patience. Say it louder.
Good things come to those that wait.
Good things come to those that wait. What else?
Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification, beautiful. So it's the idea of what can you give up now in the short term for something bigger and better in the future. When I was eating a fish eyeball with my girlfriends, it was not cool to eat fish eyeballs. Like, that was not cool. It made me look really dumb and really weird but among my girlfriends. But like that weirdness and discomfort prepared me for who knew this moment later. It's the idea of what can you give up now? Can you give up less TV time, less perfectionism and dying to get a 4.0 GPA, or less attention to men that don't matter? Sorry guys, I'm not bashing you today. But give up less to things to create space for bigger and better things in your life. You make these conversations all day long on campus. Right now, you're here. Thank God. God bless you. You're here. You could be working out. You could be binging on Netflix. You could be, I mean, who really works out? Let's be honest. I mean, what else could you be doing? You could be doing so many other things. Maybe studying. As my boss at Toyota would always say, with all success comes some form of sacrifice. We're making sacrifices all the time. The suffering comes from when you make sacrifice and then dwell on it. How many have friends that are like, yeah, I signed up for this position in student activities and then I had to work a table for an hour? You're like, well, what did you expect? Or guys who want a girlfriend and they get the girlfriend and they're like, wow, this girlfriend really needs so much of my time. What did you expect? It's everything. We make these sacrifices. But the dwelling, the suffering comes from the dwelling. You make the sacrifice and then you're like, oh, why? So the peace comes from making that sacrifice with full commitment. Okay, I'm going to come to this event tonight by this girl, I have no idea who she is. And you know what? I'm going to get something from it. I might not get a lot from it. Maybe I'll get a lot, but whatever I get from it, I get from it. And move on. 3, take bold, decisive, daring action. Action can take many, many forms. The one I want to talk to tonight that I think is most relevant right now is the idea of campaigning for yourself. This is my mom's dog, Major. Super cute, right? Oh my God, those ears. Major was second in the family and is the annoying yappy dog that like follows your ankles and then licks your ankles and you're like, why are you licking my ankle? That is Major. Meanwhile, my mom has another dog that was first in the family, not in this picture. She is quiet, she doesn't bark, she doesn't shed, she doesn't slobber, she's great. Little collie mix. Well, one day I was at my mom's house and I had some lunch and I had some food left over, so I was like, I'll give it to the dogs. Well, I looked down and Major is just at my feet, like, please, please, give me that food, whatever it is, I don't even care what it is. Meanwhile, the other dog, Moose, was way in the back of the yard, sitting in the corner of the yard, sitting upright, like her regal, snooty, I'm too good for you self. Quite literally, like that's how this dog was. So who do you think got my food? Major or Moose? Sorry, I just twisted with the words. Major. Let me give you a little secret, guys. Human beings, we are lazy. I would have preferred to give it to Moose, but I didn't want to get up and walk across the yard to give it to the dog that I wanted to. Major was there, I don't have any time. Okay, Major, take your food. What does this all mean? I'm not calling y'all a bunch of dogs, but here's a question to ask for yourself. How can anyone help you with your dare if they don't know? How often are you even telling people that it's something you want to do? Or are you keeping it to yourself? So here's my next dare to you. I dare you to turn to someone around you and share your dare. 20 seconds, go.
I've already done skydiving. I cannot teach it that. She can help you with that. You're attached to someone else's so you don't have the choice.
Is it my hair? Question that you probably don't get asked much in college, which is, what did it make you feel to share your dare? Good. Can you sit back? Yeah, can you just pull it over here? That'd be awesome. Good, what else?
Embarrassment.
Embarrassed, awesome. Shy, awesome. Excited. What else? Energized.
Motivated.
Motivated. More. Hopeful. I love it. Hopeful. Good. Anyone hesitant?
Scared.
Scared. Awesome. Awkward, anyone? Okay. So Einstein once said that, Einstein once said that people with messy handwriting are smart. So I just sort of stuck with that excuse. So we could go a little bit longer, but if there's one pattern you could notice about these words, what is it?
Extreme.
Who said extremes? You overachiever. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. If you were to rephrase extremes, what would you rephrase it to?
Polar opposites of where we are.
Great. So, did anyone else notice that it's like good and bad, shy but not shy, excited but scared? Kind of opposites, right? So the idea is that if you get used to knowing that when you dare yourself, I don't know why I draw a heart just because, it's like great, that every time you dare yourself, you're going to get both of those emotions. You're going to get the scared but really, really excited, and you're going to get the overwhelmed but really energized. But if you expect this, you can handle it better next time. It's the little things, like when you came up to the front, you were energized, but you were like, oh, shnikes. Or when you have to interview with 3 bosses that are all over the age of 50 years old, 1 Japanese, 1 Thai, and 1 Indian, you are really excited, but also like, what the heck was I thinking? And then look what came from that. So don't stop with the person next to you. Tell the world what your dare is. And what I mean by that is don't just tell your friends and family, tell people outside of your friends and family. Why? Because your friends and family are the ones that are going to protect you, and they're the ones that are going to say no. I can count on one hand how many people said yes, go to Asia, and 3 of them I had never met in person. Everyone else was afraid for me. Everyone else wanted to protect me. Everyone else said, no one's ever done that before, it's crazy. Why? Because my mom just wants me to get a good job. Because the people who are closest to you are associated with your success. So they want you to do whatever will have most likely result of success, right? How many of you have ever been confused when you want to do something really courageous and then like person close to you is like, wait, don't do that? You're like, wait, why aren't you supporting me? Who wants to go work in Asia, right? This should be something exciting. So find the people outside of your circles that say yes, go, and then just tend to spend more time with those. And just avoid telling your mom that you're going to Asia until you actually get the job. Oh, my clicker wasn't on. So some tips along the way. My boss at Toyota would always say, take baby steps. If you want to be here and you're right here, you can't just jump. You have to incrementally change to get to where you want to be. So don't worry if you're not first in your class. Don't worry if you don't have a job yet. Just start somewhere. 2, want versus can. With the age of technology and the era of information overload that we're in, we get overwhelmed with the things that we can do. You can do a research project. You can sign up with Violet. You can come to this event tonight. There's a lot of cans. Try to reframe so that you're leading more with what you want to do. Because when you get to those dire points of everyone's telling you to just accept reality and come home, you're going to give in a lot more easily when it's something you can do versus something you absolutely desire and want. And lastly, when you find yourself being very skeptical, which we all do, and I still do to this very day about different things, but I still do, ask yourself, what do I have to lose? This is actually a very powerful question, especially for women, because we tend to get caught up in our emotions. But when you get very objective and you ask, what do I actually have to lose from this? What you almost always find is that what you have to lose doesn't compare to what you have to gain. Then it becomes more objective. So my last dare to y'all. I dare 3 of you to come to the front and share your dare. 1, 2. Great. Give them a round of applause, everyone. So remember the whole, not all opportunities are handed to us in a bad thing. I have, as a surprise, a poster, which is our annual dare poster where we collect dares from students around the world. So you can take this home and hang it up somewhere special in your place so it can continue to inspire you. So my ask to you is to share your name, your major if you have one, and your dare for yourself. And go ahead and take center stage.
All right. Hi, my name is Cody Terrio. I'm an environmental study major with a concentration in sustainable agriculture. I'd like to try to study abroad, head to Ireland, and study the way that they grow potatoes, and hopefully come back to Maine and share my research someday.
You go and you come this way.
Hi, I'm Diana. I'm an education major, concentration in early childhood, and I want to go to Japan
Oh!
to study their education system and hopefully learn from it.
That's amazing. Who wants to do that? That's great.
I've already started learning Japanese.
Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
I'm Ashley Doobie, and my major is business with the concentration recreation, and my dare was to travel. I've been debating whether I'd move downstate or if I'd stay up here just to get out of the area because I've lived up here my whole life, so it'd be great to explore.
Awesome. Give them a round. Do you mind carrying one for him? Okay, let's get it. Will you grab a photo of the 3 of them real quick? Squeeze up in there real quick. All right. So, Violet, I have one for you.
I can stand with it.
Can you turn the posters around? Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Awesome. Of course. So, since I like y'all, is there 2 or 3 other people that would like to share their dare before we go? Last opportunity. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, really? Did you not get my message, guys? Come on now.
We're lazy.
You have a video camera. I think there's some important people over here. I'm not sure which one.
He wants you to get up, Bart.
3 more. Going once. Twice. There we go. Give them a round of applause. Yay! have one left. So you can also have one. Please take the center. Name, major if you have one, and dare.
My name is Erin McClellan. I'm an education major with a concentration in social studies or history. And my dare was to travel and backpack across Europe.
Stay right here.
My name's Ashley, and I recently just changed my major to social.
Hold on, pause. There you go.
And I recently just changed my major to social work, but for my dare, I would like to travel and learn about other cultures from different countries.
Where would you go?
Everywhere.
What continent?
I like everywhere.
Pick one. Gotta get specific, people.
I like Europe a lot.
Okay, wonderful. Give her. Now we're like, what is she gonna say?
I'm Leilani. I'm an environmental science major, and I want to go back and study in Botswana and Japan with my grandparents.
All right, let's get one quick group shot. One group shot. All right, look happy.
Look happy.
Nope, that looks awkward.
Totally looks awkward.
Try again. There you go.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
All right, so to wrap this up, decide, delete, do. What do most people do? They deny, they distract, and they delay. Right? Anyone? Amen. We all do it a little bit. So how to get involved? There's a couple ways. If you want to grab a copy of the book, we donate a portion, 30% of all proceeds, to the Coca-Cola Scholars Foundation, which supports underprivileged high school students. I was actually a recipient of that scholarship back in the day. 2, you can make your own dare board. So if I let you want to make a dare board, there are campuses all over the country now making their own dare boards within their dorm or within their clubs to constantly remind yourself of what you want to do or want to be working towards. And lastly, some people are making or taking this whole dare theme a little bit too seriously.
Hilary Corna told me to always eat the eyeball.
It does not get old. Do you want to watch it again? So this was a student of mine from like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and his dare was to be a Fulbright. Do you guys know what the Fulbright is? It's a very prestigious, like fellowship type thing. I don't know how to explain. I'm not doing a good job pitching. And he did it. He applied and he got it in Mexico and worked for a Mexican Airlines. And then he sent me this video. So let's watch one more time.
Hilary Corna told me to always eat the eyeball.
He chewed it. He didn't take my advice. Oh my God. All right, guys. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. Find me on social. Connect. Say hi. Whatever. I love you. Thank you so much.